Hey folks, Brad coming at you here with a little NFL video. Some of you people like them, so just warning, there's no cards. It's all about NFL coaches, the new ones. So if it's not your thing, go ahead and turn off because you won't know what the heck I'm talking about anyway, right? So there was 9 changes in the NFL. To put that in perspective, there's only 32 teams, so that's over a quarter of the league have changed coaches. Basically 8 fired, 1 quit. So I guess we'll do them by age. So we'll start youngest to oldest. So we have a 36-year-old getting a job, and Kevin O'Connell. And you might say, I remember in the hobby, Kevin O'Connell. In 2008, we always seemed to hit Kevin O'Connell and Chad Henne when you were chasing Matt Ryan and such, right? We would always hit Kevin O'Connell and Chad Henne. Well, Chad Henne's actually still in the league, believe it or not. And yes, it's that Kevin O'Connell who came in as a quarterback for the Patriots. Honestly, he sucked in the NFL. He hung around for 4 or 5 years. And then now he is your new coach of the Minnesota Vikings. I guess because he's drank a cup of coffee with Sean McVay. He's the Rams offensive coordinator, which they are in the Super Bowl, obviously. But not a whole lot of experience. Obviously, quarterbacks coach in Washington prior to him being the offensive coordinator for the Rams. But other than that, this is a swing for the fences. Hope he's the next big thing. You'll look like a genius, or in 2 years he's fired, and you go, well, what were you thinking, right? But the Vikings have been known underachievers. They probably should have been in a Super Bowl over the last 5 years. And it seemed like it was always something, right? So we'll have to see what he does there. Are they keeping Kirk Cousins for his other year? What are they doing there? Is it going to be a rebuild, retool? Try to just maybe slightly go back with Kirk Cousins in the same gang and hope you can make the playoffs. I don't know. But Kevin O'Connell, youngest coach at 36, coaching the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said, not a whole lot of coaching experience to go off of. And I guess we'll put him in the Sean McVay coaching tree, even though he started with Washington. That's all you got. Next up, the Dolphins. They hired a nerd who I'm pretty sure is a stoner. This guy's a little different. You can tell. He graduated at Yale. And you can tell he's a nerd. And he also, I'm pretty sure he's rolling doobies. All right. But Mike McDaniel at 38, new coach of the Miami Dolphins. This is a classic example of I'm going to hire the exact opposite of what I had before. You see it a lot. So you have more of an intense, non-sense of humor, more all business than Brian Flores. You bring in the skinny nerd who's very X's and O's oriented and kind of has a sense of humor. It's like the exact opposite, right? But he falls under the Mike Shanahan coaching tree, and that's basically all he's ever been with is basically a Shanahan. He was an intern for the Broncos in 2005, so he's been in the NFL actually for a very long time coaching, since he was like 23 or whatever. So he actually has been around, but it's pretty much only been under the Shanahans. It was Mike to start, and then he reportedly told Kyle when he got into coaching, you take this guy wherever you go. And that's what he's done. So he was with Kyle Shanahan, the year the Falcons had like one of the greatest offenses ever. He was an offensive assistant. He's coached wide receivers, run game coordinator. He's supposedly influential in play design and stuff for the Shanahans over these last few years. Spoke fairly highly of from an X's and O's standpoint. Now, is he a leader of men? Is he good? That doesn't make you a good head coach. But again, they did the opposite of what they had before, hoping it works. I kind of like the guy. I'm not going to lie. He at least makes me laugh. Well, we'll see. Is he in over his head? Another one, I think, is a swing for the fences type hire. Or in 2 years, again, you're just going to be like, well, what were we thinking? You know? But I do like the fact that over the last 5, 6 years, teams aren't just doing retreads. You remember we used to see the same retreads over and over again. At least teams smartened up about that and are taking shots on new coaches. So we'll see how that works out. Oh, Mike McDaniel rolling doobies in Miami. Next up, to me, one of the surprises, but Nathaniel Hackett goes to the Denver Broncos, age 42. He is the son of Paul Hackett, which, if you're a real big football guy, legendary quarterback coach for like 30 years in the NFL. And Nathaniel Hackett, well, he basically, that's what he does, is he works with quarterbacks. He was in the Blake Bortles era, offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in the Blake Bortles era in Jacksonville. And then the last 3 years have been with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Yeah, I don't know. This hire didn't get because he's like, I mean, you've seen Green Bay and Jacksonville's offense, very Mike McCarthy-esque is how I would put it. Very basic, very vanilla, based on execution, but not nifty play design. So maybe he's good at working with quarterbacks. Obviously, that's what they're hoping. My guess is they plan on drafting one. I don't know. There's a lot of talk about Aaron Rodgers going there this offseason. I don't know. But Nathaniel Hackett, Denver Broncos, I would say of all the coaching hires, that was the one that made me scratch the head that he was kind of a hot candidate, and I didn't get why. But Nathaniel Hackett, congrats to you. You're a Denver. Now, next up, a guy a lot of people thought would never take a job because he was basically, everybody thinks he was promised the job when Bill Belichick leaves in New England, right? So Josh McDaniels gets his second try. If you remember, before the Colts had to hire Frank Reich, they actually agreed with Josh McDaniels on a deal, and he reneged. So he was going to be the Colts head coach a few years ago. And he's like, he thought better of it. And now he's headed to the Las Vegas Raiders. So you will remember he did do a head coaching gig in 2009, 2010 with the Broncos, the Kyle Orton-led Broncos, you guys might remember. And that didn't go that great, let's face it. He even admitted he didn't know how to work with people and that he's learned that over time. And I could see that. He doesn't seem like a very personal person. Belichick tree, he's not the most personable guy, right? So he struggled, he admitted, he struggled working with others. So we'll see how he does in Vegas. This team actually surprised me making the playoffs this year. We kind of made fun of them when they thought they were a playoff team at the beginning of the year. I know I did. Well, they were right. So we'll see what he does with Derek Carr there. But yeah, Josh McDaniels decides to leave New England because, again, people pretty much thought he was promised the job with Belichick last, but who knows when that guy's going to leave, right? So he's headed to Vegas, Mr. Josh McDaniels. Next up, probably the hottest candidate out there, I would say, other than Harbaugh, who I didn't think was ever actually leaving Michigan. But Brian Daboll, going to the New York Giants, age 46. Interesting thing about Daboll is he actually started his career on defense as a defensive coach for the Patriots in 2000, 2001. And then he moved to wide receivers coach. And then from there on out, he was pretty much either a quarterbacks coach or offensive coordinator. But interesting that he started on defense and then went on to the offensive side of the ball. Honestly, his offensive coordinator gigs, Browns for 2 years, Dolphins, Chiefs for a year, pre-Andy Reid-ish. And then he went to Alabama for a year, and then he was the Bills offensive coordinator the last 4. Remember, the first 2 years of that Bills coordinator job did not go well. he did not have a good coordinating record, quite frankly. And then the last 2 years with the growth of Josh Allen, which he is credited for, which it might be true. I don't know. But he is getting a head coaching gig for the New York Giants. So we'll see. We'll see how influential was he the reason Josh Allen progressed the way he did. Maybe that's true. But that team was pretty stacked. This might be, I don't know. I'm not convinced that Brian Daboll is definitely the home run hire people think he is. But he's headed to the New York Giants, so good luck to you, sir. Next up, we got a guy that stayed in-house. Sean Payton retires from the New Orleans Saints after like 16 years, right? So they decide we're going to keep the stability together because you remember this team has zero cap space. They always have to finagle every year. So they aren't ready to do a rebuild yet, it looks like, right? They're not just going to be like, oh, we're done. They feel like they're too good on defense. So they kept their defensive coordinator and made him head coach, Dennis Allen. You might say, man, didn't Dennis Allen used to coach? Yes. He's been a defensive coach all his life. That's what he does. He's good at it. But he was the coach of the Oakland Raiders from 12 for a couple years. And, he won 8 games in 2 seasons. So that didn't go well for him. Again, that doesn't mean you suck as a head coach. The team could have just been bad situation. But he's been there with the Saints since 2015. They wanted stability. They said, okay, we think we have a pretty good team. If Jameis Winston didn't get hurt, we would have been in the playoffs. Maybe Michael Thomas comes back. You know, he has a weird injury. But yeah, he knows defense. The defense is going to be good. He gets his next gig. Again, it seems like a pretty good organization that Payton built up there. So good ownership. Maybe he'll succeed this go around. Next up, Matt Eberflus. At age 51, the Chicago Bears. So, yeah. I actually kind of like this hire. He just screams Chicago to me. Linebacker, played it in college. I think it was Toledo. Very aggressive, that kind of old school defensive mindset, rally to the ball type. He just seems like a Bear guy, right? When you say Chicago Bears. You might remember the Brad Smith era in Missouri. That's actually where he got his defensive coordinator start. During that era in Missouri. And then he coached linebackers for Eric Mangini in Cleveland. Rob Ryan, the Cowboys, hired him to coach linebackers. And then he's been the Colts defensive coordinator the last 4 years, who have had very good defenses. And they're basically thinking, okay, we're going to stick a defensive coach. We're going to play with high energy, stick him with the young quarterback. Now the question is, he signed Luke Getsy, again from the Packers, to be the offensive coordinator. We'll see. He's going to be leaning on those guys pretty heavily because this guy only has a linebacker defensive background. But I kind of like the hire, I think. It's not sexy, but I think he fits. I think he fits the Bears. I really do. So I hope that goes well. But again, another team that just doesn't have a lot of flexibility. They have some bad contracts. They don't have a lot of draft picks. It's going to be so dependent on Justin Fields' development if they're in playoff contention or not. But their thought process is, hey, with him, he's going to lead us to a top 10 defense. If Fields gradually progresses, maybe we sneak in the playoffs. Right? So next up, number 8 on the list, Mr. Doug Pederson is back in the league. After the crap show with Urban Meyer, which I would have to say most of us saw coming, right? Not many people thought that was going to work. But age 54 now, you guys all right, remember Doug Pederson as a quarterback for many years, like 14 years in the league. Mainly backup journeyman. As a coach with the Eagles, he obviously got a start. He's an Andy Reid disciple. Coach quarterbacks, did some offensive coordinator gigs with the Chiefs when Andy Reid moved there. And then was the head coach of the Eagles, who did win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, had Carson Wentz playing the best of his career. We've never seen it again since that good. But he's a guy, he seems kind of, people don't love him. He seems kind of difficult to work with. I think that was kind of his undoing in the Eagles. And so we'll see. But I kind of like this hire too, to be honest. I would say this and the Eberflus hire were my two favorites. So he's going to work with Trevor Lawrence, who quite frankly didn't look that great. Now, again, your team's bad. You take it with a grain of salt. But he did not look like people thought. So Doug Pederson's going to be in charge of turning Mr. Trevor Lawrence into what everyone thought he was guaranteed to be. So I like it. Like I said, him and Eberflus were probably my two favorite hires. And then last but not least, we got Mr. Lovie Smith back in the league, right? It looked for a long time like the Texans wanted Josh McCown. They were going to give Josh McCown, what up, Dave Archer, a shot at a head coaching gig, and it sounded like they just got cold feet with it. Like, do we want a young coach because you still got the Watson situation? You still just got – it's still kind of a mess, and I think their thought process is we can't stick a guy with no coaching experience with this mess. So they went safe. They said Lovie's in the building. He got that defense to play well above its talent level, which is what he does. So he's like, all right, maybe we'll get some stability for a couple of years with Lovie, and then maybe hire Josh McCown, right? But I think that's like what their thinking was. I think they wanted Josh McCown, but then they just thought there's just too much going on here for a coach with very little coaching experience. You know, setting him up to fail. So we're going to get an experienced guy, you know, obviously known most for the Bears from the Tony Dungy tree of coaching. And it said, hey, we're just going to be solid. Davis Mills looked like he might be an NFL quarterback. People forget that guy was like the top recruit coming into college. So it isn't like it came out of nowhere. He just kept getting hurt. So, yeah, I think that was the Texans' thinking. I think they wanted to hire McCown. But they just kind of got cold feet with it and said, kind of like, I mean, because Lovie Smith kind of getting screwed here, just like David Culley got screwed before. Everyone knew David Culley wasn't head coach material. Everybody knew he was a year or two guy, and it turned out it was just a year. And I felt sorry for him. It was like, what was he going to do? To me, he overachieved with that team. But either way, so Lovie Smith kind of set up to fail, but don't be surprised if this team's nearing the 500 record. I wouldn't be shocked, you know, if they win 7-8 games with Lovie Smith. That's just what he does. Again, Bears fans, you know, some were, I liked them, I didn't like, well, they probably just wish they would have kept them. But there's the 9 new coaching hires. So let me know what your favorite was and your least favorite. I would say my 2 favorites were Doug Pederson and Matt Eberflus. And my least favorite was Nathaniel Hackett. So let me know what you think. Yeah, that's all I got. That's just a little, what was that, under 20 minutes. All right, so there's 9 coaching hires in under 20 minutes. Give you a little something about them. Out. Enjoy the Super Bowl, folks. I think, you know, this is one of those where you're not pissed at whoever wins, so that's good. But I say I'm rooting for the Bengals. I mean, Stafford winning wouldn't be a problem, you know, after spending all that time in Detroit, right? But, yeah, I hope, you know, we just hope it's a good game, right? But I would say I'm rooting for the Bengals. So go Bengals. Thanks for watching, folks. Like I said, let me know down below what was your favorite and least favorite hire. Bye-bye.